my youngest was on this football team where the star quarterback was the son of the coach, et cetera, et cetera. So, and it's one of those things where there's nothing wrong with that unless there's something wrong with it, you know?
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Coffee Break Podcast, where our mission is to share business ideas, practices, and strategies while we enjoy our cup of coffee. Today's episode is a father-daughter team. Yeah, they're doing a fantastic work with a ad agency, and they're going to be talking more about that kind of relationship. Father and daughter working together, the family dynamic, pros and cons of it, how they've navigated it, some tips and tricks for you as well. If that's something that you're doing, something that you're managing, or something that you're looking at potentially doing down the line. And before we get into that conversation, I do want to invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. Man, this is incredible. We are moving on towards our fourth year of recording these podcasts and sharing them with you. And I want you to be involved in it and don't miss out on a single episode. So make sure you subscribe. If you're listening to this audio version on whatever platform you're on, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have a brand new episode every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. available for you. If you're watching this on video, you're either on Facebook or YouTube, or maybe you followed a link from LinkedIn, you can subscribe on our YouTube channel or follow our Facebook page as well, so you'll get the latest videos when they are out on Tuesday mornings. Thank you very much for joining us today. I want you to grab a cup of coffee and get ready for this conversation with Lee and Sophia Calderon.
We got so much to say. We got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes, and it's time for a coffee break. It's time for a coffee break. Oh, yeah.
Well, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the Coffee Break.
Thank you so much for having us.
You don't have coffee, though, so you have water.
I can turn this, though.
Oh, okay, well.
And I'm just about out.
Oh, we've been sitting here chatting so long that we're out of coffee. Now, are you an anti-coffee drinker, or you just have had enough already?
I had some before we came, and then as soon as I finished my cup, I was like, shoot. Yeah. It's called Coffee Break.
Well, we have lots of coffee around here, so we should be good to go. All right, well, let's jump into the conversation today. We're going to be chatting a little bit about working with family and how that works, because the old rule is never go into business with friends or family. And
that's what they say.
Yeah, you guys did that. So we'll talk through that. I'm interested in the conversation from a perspective of how that works together in a positive and a negative way. We also in our organization here have several sets of family that work together. There's an interesting dynamic, and we can kind of chat through that as well. But before we do that, it's rapid fire, 5 randomly selected questions just to get under your skin with unknown point values. Ready to go?
Sure.
All right. Question number 1: what is the best thing that you learned in the past year? So we're recording this kind of at the close of 2021. Yeah. So
that's perfect.
What's the best thing that you learned this year?
For me, I think it's revisit everything I kind of learned when I was 5.
Okay.
So that inner child.
So get in touch with that inner child and tap into that, pure innocence and probably most creative stage of your life. So, yeah.
Things are probably still true to that point.
Yeah, yeah. And for some reason, I feel like I can visit that world easily sometimes. So that's weird. I don't know.
What about you, Sophia?
Oh gosh, I would say just always looking to be better, which is kind of vague and basic, but it's true. And just looking for that in different things, weird places that you would never think you'd find inspiration from, because that's what I usually do. And I'm like, way better because of that. And it's weird, like just to compare yourself to the beginning of this year with a mindset this big, and now it's tripled just because you go to different sources, different things, whether think completely outside your world of whether it's your work life, your home life, look in other places, whether it's somewhere in the world, people online that speak another language and you have to translate it, different things, because you can always learn from those sources you wouldn't think to go to.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, because I think it's very true that we all like kind of isolate ourselves to our own circle of knowledge base or our own circle of
Definitely.
influence.
Absolutely.
And if you can go outside of that at times, then it just sparks a whole different.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point and reminder, because, you know, I'm huge about also in terms of, you know, like, don't be you, you know, be an architect, be an archaeologist, be a, you know, fashion designer, be a, you know, let yourself be something else and re-enter the room and just go, you know. I think it's great because it's too easy to be conditioned and limited by our, you know, silo.
You can find those golden nuggets in everything you look at.
It's like pretend,
Yeah.
make believe. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. It's the inner child thing. Go back to those days. It's like there's a wealth of just being.
Dress up.
Dress up, make believe. Exactly.
There was a podcast that we recorded recently with a guest that was a copywriter, and she said something very similar, that she, you know, whenever she went into a writing frenzy for whatever, she kind of became that character. And that was kind of the way that she was able to process it. Very interesting. All right, next question, number 2. What do you consider the smartest thing that you've ever done in your life so far?
The smartest.
Go with my gut feeling on things.
Okay.
I feel like you can always trust your gut and just those,
Yeah.
you know, feelings you get, and you'll always land in the right spot.
Yeah.
And that's just smart to listen to your gut.
Yeah.
I'd have to say marrying my wife.
Aww.
That would be the smartest thing ever.
That was probably the smartest thing you've said on this podcast.
And we're done. Thank you, folks. Hi, honey.
Well done, sir. Well done. Question number 3. What is something interesting about you? Let me say that question again. What is something interesting about you that very few people know?
Let's see, something interesting. Oh gosh, that's I could impersonate the mating call of a cricket. Go figure, right? Yeah, same. I know.
I would say probably that's a very hidden talent. Yeah.
Few know.
Few know.
Yeah, and that's probably good.
Yeah. Impersonate the mating call of a cricket. That's got to go on some type of a highlight reel. I don't know where in the world to go with that. All right. Give you an opportunity to one up that one.
Yeah.
I probably could, but I'm not going to expose myself for that because that would just be so embarrassing.
Oh, no, he should.
Okay, this is thanks to my mom.
Okay.
My arms aren't straight. Like, I can't make my arm straight. And a lot of people don't realize that because you're moving and you usually don't see that. But my arms, I can't make them straight. I've been exposed.
There you
Sorry.
go. Huh.
It's not on your resume, right?
Yeah.
No.
I don't think that'll affect you negatively through life, but that is interesting.
It affected me when I was in dance classes.
Yeah.
That sucked.
Yeah.
I broke my left arm when I was 4, and it is crooked as well.
Oh, wow.
Thank you. That made me feel better.
We're all messed up.
So I don't know whose was worse
Physically,
or weirder.
Psychologically.
Just trying to squash that mating ritual call.
Yeah.
Question number 4. What's something that you would be willing to stay up all night to do?
Mine's easy. Art.
Art?
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably done that a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
For sure.
He still does
I think my record is 4 nights in a row not going to bed.
Wow.
Or, 4 days and nights.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's crazy.
How old were you?
Like 30.
Oh.
When I did that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe that's what affected me.
That's what it was.
I can't remember. It was.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. So I love it. It's just such a, moment of inner dialogue.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. You're up.
Mine's going to be very emotional, but anything for a loved one, I would stay up for always. Like if anyone needed me, a family member, a friend, a boyfriend, whoever, that's what I would do.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah. I don't know.
I stayed up all night one time because I broke a computer network system and we had to fix it. So that was
there. You go.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
like you're kind of against the wall. You had to. Yeah. We walked out. We walked in about 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening, or maybe it was earlier than that, and we left at about 5 a.m.
Oh,
yeah,
wow,
it was brutal.
Yeah.
Anyways,
you figured things out though.
We got it back up and running.
Okay.
Hey,
good.
it was
So,
worth
there you
it.
go.
Nobody ever knew. No one was ever the wiser. All right, last question, number 5. What is something small that you recently noticed?
Something small?
Yeah. It never occurred to you before.
Oh boy.
I know, that's a really hard one.
That's a tough one.
What
Save
we're
the
here for.
hardest one, yeah.
We're here to challenge people.
Yeah, you did that. Boy.
I'm waiting for you to go so hopefully it sparks something for
Yeah,
me.
yeah, thanks. Something small. Okay, next.
I know, wait.
Past. I don't know. I can't even think of something small that I never noticed.
Yeah, that you just never noticed before. Something that was not like this major revelation, but it was just like, I never really paid attention to that before. Okay.
I got mine.
Yeah,
All right.
oh, good.
Your beard is ginger compared to your hair.
It is.
I was just looking at it.
That is so funny.
Got mine.
Yeah, thanks.
How many points was that one?
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, you just oh gosh. Yeah,
We're gonna have to
must have been
deduct
pretty
points.
small because
Yeah. We'll have to deduct points. All right.
I know.
Well, we passed
All
rapid
right.
fire. 5 randomly selected questions will give you guys a collective score of 983.
Awesome.
That work?
Okay.
That works. Thank you.
All right.
That's generous.
Yeah.
I was like, is that good?
Yeah.
It's a score.
The
All right.
points
Got
don't
it.
matter.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's all made up. We understand the frustrations HOA board members and property managers face when deciding the best solution for their HOA and pool security. Should we use a keypad, hand out keys, or install a key card system? Do we even need cameras? These are some of the questions that are difficult to navigate, and we're here to help. At Loc-Doc Security, we've spent over 20 years working with homeowners associations and property managers to find the system that best fits the pool and HOA needs. Camera systems for the front gate or front entrance, key card systems for the pool gates, or simply updating the gate so that it meets safety and code compliance. We like to take the guesswork out of the process to answer any questions and help find the right solution. Our mission is to help you protect your people and your property, and that includes pools. Contact our team today to schedule your free consultation for your community. Well, let's kind of jump into I think we've already had a really good conversation so far, but we'll jump into kind of the meat of the conversation today. So, by way of introduction first, because we're going to be talking about working with family, so we'll kind of establish why you're working with family. But as way of introduction, give us a little bit of who you are.
Okay. I am a artist and designer by heart. I am working as a creative director at Arthur Elliott, brand agency, marketing design firm, and a father of 3 and originally from Southern California, living on the East Coast now for about 3 years, and digging it. Love the folks here, and life is good.
All right. Well, I'm gonna come back and ask you a question. What is a creative director, and how, and from an artist perspective, because sometimes those titles get very broad for us. So I want to break that down. But give us a little bit of introduction for you.
I'm Sophia. I'm a graphic designer at Arthur Elliott, so he's my boss. I mean, it's going to be a similar story, except I don't have 3 kids. But I am from Southern California. So I'm the middle child of his 3 kids.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, middle child. Do you have like any? No. I've had conversations with people before that are middle children, and they're like really kind of quirky about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a syndrome, I'd say, middle child syndrome. But my good thing is that I'm the only girl. Okay. So I get a little bit of like that princess, card to play, but middle child syndrome is real.
It's real.
But you keep
It's
it in
real.
check. She's got a great head on her shoulders.
But you're the only one that works with your father.
Yes.
Oh.
Well,
No? Oh.
kind of.
Yeah.
Full
Yeah.
time. Full time. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's bounce back to what does a creative director do?
Creative director. So creative director, you basically are in charge and have the creative team under your wings, which means basically for most projects, you kind of have your eye, your influence, your inspiration, and, kind of like going through projects and influencing, inspiring, approving, as well as the individuals, the creatives that make up the team. So there's, a relationship, dialogue as far as nurturing, growing, making sure, because really the creative department is about them.
Sure.
It's kind of like one of those things where as you become the creative director, you have already pretty much lived your creative flexing days.
Gotcha.
But it just kind of takes on a different, skin, so to speak.
Sure.
And it's, it's an opportunity to help nurture and grow the other creatives and encourage them and kind of find their superpowers. And it's very rewarding, and you get to see the different personalities and talents, skills and whatnot, and you go about it day by day. So that way,
it's a great definition. So, in kind of because a lot of times I'm trying to translate a specific role over into maybe some other type of business, so we have some application. But it sounds like, and I would draw some conclusion from this.
Sure.
You are maybe meeting with the client, understanding the direction and the vision.
Right.
Okay.
So that's you're right. What I described was really one part of it, one facet.
Yeah.
Exactly. So at Arthur Elliott, basically I'm involved at the top level, the creative vision for the agency. Yeah. I work with the president of the company, Andy. And so we meet with clients, we kind of like digest, listen, do a lot of empathetic listening, and then kind of set the strategy.
Got it.
So, a little bit. I'm the one with the crazy ideas or whatever. I get grounded, and we have a great rapport. Thank God, a great rapport in terms of from a mix of strategy and creative, and that sort of thing.
And then from that, you take that kind of what the client is looking for, kind of what you've proposed, bring that vision together, and then you're going to be able to resource your team to say, okay, this is going to be best suited here, utilize all their strengths.
Exactly. Okay. That's exactly spot on.
All right, cool. So in terms of other businesses, it may be kind of like a project manager of understanding the team and the resources that you have and being able to resource those people.
Yeah, sort of. Because the irony is we have the account executives.
Sure.
So they're kind of like a little bit more so the project managers of projects. And and so then it's really, you have strategy, you have account management, you have creative. Yeah. And the three facets kind of make everything happen.
So now when you bring your creative team together, you've got graphic designers, what other types of creatives do you have under your belt?
Yeah, some specialize, like let's say a little bit more on video. Sometimes we even some will specialize in like layout, like really beautiful layout skills, because they may have worked as a book designer, magazine designer, things of that nature. Others might focus and flex more so as it comes to brand identity, developing logos, et cetera,
Gotcha.
or websites and that sort of thing. So you kind of try to corral and use your best assets accordingly.
Okay.
And
Very cool. So that's kind of the structure there. And Sophia, you're a graphic designer underneath that team.
Yes.
All right. And so now you've been brought onto a team with other creatives and you're working with your dad. What kind of dynamic has that been for you? What kind of maybe day-to-day either frustrations, because I'm imagining that you go back home together, so there's not a lot of separation of that, right? So what are some of those day-to-day frustrations or things that you're seeing, maybe even with the rest of your team members?
Yeah, I'd like to hear that.
No, it's actually really, really good. It's been really great. The other designers, I thought for sure coming into it, maybe some judgments, like you mentioned earlier before we got on, nepotism, things like that. And honestly, they've been very welcoming and very kind to me and treating me like I'm just another designer. So that's been really cool. And then we're very good at keeping things like, okay, here's home life and now here's work life. Mm-hmm. We're both very good at that. And that was important. And we had a big conversation before I made that decision to try to join Arthur Elliott, just to make sure we were both on the same page. And so far it's worked out really nice. Mm-hmm. I'd say the only thing would be, of course, when we go home, we'll usually talk about our days. And it's like, I kind of already know what his day was like. He kind of already knows what my day was like. Sure. But then the work conversations keep going and, we could do this, which is great. Like most of the time it is great because you're like, oh my gosh, we would have never thought of that. And we can continue those conversations. Yeah. But of course, there comes a point where you're like, it's 8:00. Like, I'm kind of done talking about work right now. So that's the only thing. Honestly, it's been really awesome. Yeah. Like, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be able to work at Arthur Elliott and to work with my dad because he's been one of my biggest teachers, not just in life because he's my dad, but for my professional career as well. So,
the nepotism thing, I have. That's been I guess a topic of my mind for a long period of time, and that's even when we were discussing this before we got started recording. In our organization here, we have my wife works here, my business partner wife works with him as well. We've got a couple. We've got a father and two son team, another father and two son team. Oh wow! Yeah. We've got some cousins and some all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot of family connection inside the organization. And so there's always kind of that caution of nepotism and even more so, a father and son dynamic of management and some, team member type thing. Mm-hmm. So those are some of my interests, even through this conversation as well, because navigating that, and even more so, especially when you're still living at home, because you don't. I mean, you would get that in the spouse realm as well, where it's just how do you kind of shut down the conversation where it doesn't just engulf your entire life. But there's also some major positives of that because that conversation can flow and jive at any moment, right?
Right.
Absolutely. And I think the interesting thing about it is, we have to remind ourselves that, life is an experience is sometimes the biggest nourishment to our work life. And so it's okay to, recommended, I think, to have more of the personal life kind of discussions at home and just experiences and going out and doing stuff and things like that, talking about that stuff and exchanging ideas just as much because, some of that's going to come back to the work anyway. It doesn't have to be just so serious and so about, a project or somebody or a relationship or whatever. Because, a little bit that kind of gets, I don't know, too serious, and it's just like, I just want to shed that and just have fun.
Well, I think also nepotism can show its way when it's, to me, and maybe this is just my own definition of it, and I haven't Googled it, so this may be on, is if you have somebody in a position, even though because they're family, but even though they're not qualified to do the job. Right. Yeah. So it sounds like in this situation, you're already on that path, like you're qualified to do the job. And even more so, you might be in a better position just because of the fact that you've been being taught this for your entire life, right? So you've got a lot of that natural training. So are you qualified to do the job, or have you just been put in that position because of the family dynamic?
Right. And I think that's what made the big difference for Andy to, let me be part of the team kind of thing, because I showed him my portfolio. I still went through all of that to see, show him what I could do. And it just worked out.
Yeah.
So I do have a question on top of that, because I'm interested. I'm trying to put myself in a, outside of this particular conversation as a listener going, okay, well, I'm running a business and, my children are coming up and I would like to have them involved in the business and I just want to put them in a role. What are those the precursors, right? How did you handle that with the rest of the team?
Yeah, that's a great point and great, part of this conversation. So I knew going into it that there was going to be that initial watch out. Yeah. Equally, I remember when my youngest was younger and on this football team where the star quarterback was the son of the coach, et cetera, et cetera. So, and it's one of those things where there's nothing wrong with that unless there's something wrong with it, and that favoritism and all that stuff. And, it's like part of it is like, if you're going to be, you have to be aware of it and you have to know how to navigate that, because I think you have to give equal opportunity for others and have all that happen. If that kid or whatever is crushing it, then great. But you still need to mix it all in. You have to understand what you're working with, and the thing is, as we were talking about earlier, I'm probably hardest on Sophia, and myself included. But here's the thing: at the end of the day, I know that if I step back and kind of watched the game from the sidelines myself, however it works out is how it's going to work out and needs to work out. And I think that, everybody has the same exact opportunity to step up and swing the bat.
Sure. And
everybody has their own unique skills and all that. So I welcome and hope that is always the filter that everybody's looking at it, because it's just unfortunately way too easy for somebody else to kind of go, oh, great, here we go. The coach's son is the quarterback kind of thing. It's like, well, no, it's however it needs to work out. Step up, everybody deliver and do your thing. And then let everybody else outside of, let's say, the creative department or whatever, have their own opinions and have their own, influence and all that. And I think it's worked out. And she, Sophia, also there's the part where, it's kind of like we were talking about earlier, where there's that added layer that when you have, you share DNA, let's say, it's two brothers and a sister, and they're on a same rock band or whatever, a band, and they're singing that harmony and all that, finishing each other's thoughts and sentences and all that, naturally is going to happen. But that is not a point of favoritism. It just happens and it's easy. And once again, it's the let it be kind of, mindset. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. That can happen. That's not about favoritism. That just is. On the other side of the fence, so is everything else that has been with others that do not share the same DNA.
Sure.
So it's all welcome. It's all good. And you just have to keep your head screwed on and the field level. And I want everybody to be a rock star.
Sure.
I don't care, whatever, who and what and all that.
Can you copy this key? That's a question we get asked about 3,422 times a year. And how can you actually be sure that the person who asked that question is supposed to get a copy of that key? Well, we think you should always know who can copy your keys to your business and your home, because it could be your neighbor, an old employee, a contractor, or even worse, your mother-in-law. At Loc-Doc Security, we believe in protected key systems, so you always know who has a copy of your key. To find out more, visit locdoc.net or stop by our Charlotte location. Loc-Doc Security, helping you protect your people and your property. I would imagine many people have been in a situation where somebody's child has been placed in a position, or a spouse or whatever has been placed in a position just because of the relationship. And everybody else involved knows that they are not at the best fit for that role. And it's a frustration. I think the biggest thing that I'm hearing through this conversation right now is that there's an awareness of that, and there was an intentional set aside of that at the beginning, and the awareness is going to help to change that. I would also be interested, looking 5-10 years down the road, at the level of graphic design that Sophia turns out, because of the fact that she's probably holding herself to a higher standard just because she doesn't want to see the nepotism card being played, right?
Absolutely. She already does that naturally. We had a conversation about that yesterday, I think it was, in fact. And she's very much about the perfectionist. And I said, you're like a really good student, and you're super hard on yourself. Don't be. Have certain expectations, but have fun doing it. Don't crush yourself or whatever. But everybody's great. Everybody, I think, delivers, at the agency, has their own unique skill sets. It's not about comparison. It's about bringing you to the table and, and crushing it. And that sort of thing.
So I want to ask that question because there's a couple of other things I want to get into, but I want to maybe try to bring a close to this point of working with family. What was the basis? I'm trying to think how to ask the question. What was the basis of setting the boundaries or having the conversation before you walked into this? Because I think that's really the big takeaway for me as of right now is, had you experienced it on the negative side before and you're like, hey, before we walk down this path, here are the things like we want to have some, we want to have some separation of work-life balance, or we want to have some separation of conversation so that we don't just totally bog ourselves down in that. And also, these are the things that I'm going to expect from you, and these are the things that you can expect from me type thing. Having that conversation up front, I think, is the vital component of what I'm hearing right now. At least you guys were intentional about that early on. Where was that? Was that advice that you'd gotten from somewhere else? Was that based off of previous bad experiences, or it was just like, hey, man, this was just natural?
That.
It was. I think because him and I are so close and like we goof off with each other all the time.
Sure.
So going into a work setting, you can't goof off all the time.
Got it.
So I think we both knew we needed to sit down and talk about it. And it was kind of natural to just sit down and talk about it because I was like, hey, should I go for the internship here? And, are you cool with that? And so naturally we just started talking, okay, well, let's not goof off like how we normally do at home. And at the office, I call him Lee. I don't say, hey, Dad, and he calls me Sophia and things like that. So we're very mindful about things like that. I don't know. It was very natural, I feel like.
Yeah. And the thing is, kind of piggybacking on what we were just talking about is the fact that I know because of her nature of really putting herself in check, I mean, from second one, that I didn't have to worry about a certain level of expectation or, just handouts and that sort of thing.
Got it. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that it was actually easy for me.
Yeah. What would be some advice that you would give to another father-daughter potential working relationship or father-son working relationship that you would say, hey, here are some things to some boxes to check before you walk down that path? And I'd like to ask that question kind of from both sides, if from the parental side, and then also from the side of the child, saying, hey, these are some things that you need to be mindful of or check off before you enter into this.
Yeah. Do you want to go first?
I just know for me, it's kind of what I mentioned a little bit earlier, but it's Lee, or your dad's name, right? It's not Dad at work. And then just understanding that, like, take out your relationship. He is a whole adult himself who has a very professional job that he's worked really hard for. So I think just understanding that and knowing how serious it is to not goof off or kind of almost make him look smaller than what he is in front of your peers is really important, because to me it's just goofing off, but someone might see that as like, oh, I'm not going to take him that serious now.
Exactly.
And especially at his position as a creative director, he's a lot of people's boss. So it's really important to understand that, like, take apart, like, oh, this is my dad. You have to see that person as just a person and their professional job. And that was what I kind of told myself to, like, really understand that and just keep from our silly banter. So without taking the fun out of it. I mean, sometimes we still have banter, but it's work appropriate. It's what I would do with anyone else who wasn't my dad.
Got it.
So.
Yeah, I think I'd say it's really, if you focus about the work and keep it about the work, then I think you're well ahead of it. And I think because the more you can step away about from the personal relationship aspect and just really think about, you are here to focus on ideas, on growth, on vision, and that sort of thing, design, et cetera, et cetera. And, obviously from a business standpoint, from, transformation standpoint, et cetera, and growth. So I think the more you can focus on the work, it's better. Just like, as you're, ironically enough, as you're raising kids, it's not about the child, for example, doing the behavior wrong. It's about the behavior, or it's about, the thing, it's about the topic, and meeting them where they're at, obviously, whether it's a child or, a colleague, etc. And I think the more you can focus on the action and the behavior and that sort of thing, then I think you're halfway there, and you're at a better, you're setting up a better framework, for whatever happens.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting and very cool from that perspective, because I've had a lot of conversations with folks over the years, and it seems like there's, one side of it is either I don't want my kids involved in my business at all. Like I don't want them to do something completely different.
Right.
Or there's, that nepotism of, they're involved, and everybody in the company's like, oh God!
Yeah, great.
When Bob's son takes over, we're
right.
And then I think that there's the other side where some people are doing it really well, and they are the best fit for that role, and you're seeing some really good success with it. The cool thing, and I would commend you guys on this, is it seems like, one, Sophia has a high respect for you as a creative professional, and that speaks volumes, because that's got to be an admirable thing, right? That your kids actually respect what you're doing. And then at the same regard, it seems like that you are, it's a very, very cool thing to have your kids be able to follow in some of your footsteps. So those are two really cool things to be able to see. And if they do it really, really well, it's even better. You want to see them surpass you, not
absolutely. And it's funny, because really, even before Sophia came into, I'm going to say, the Arthur Elliott or even graphic design world, when you're working with a creative department made up of these talented individuals, each coming from their own walk of life, etc., you can't help but think of them as your kids.
Sure.
I mean, not to put you above or whatever, but it's more about, because you care, you want to help, you get excited, whether they know it or not, or hopefully they do know it to a certain extent. But it's great to see that, that growth. It's all about nurturing, meeting them where they're at, just like your kids or whatever. And so it's exciting, and you hope you have fun doing it, and everybody kind of sees it as a positive thing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's you're coaching people, right? And especially in that role, you're coaching people, and so you get to see them succeed. And I think and maybe this is either super obvious or people just totally disagree with it, but I think the success of a coach is that people surpass you at a certain point,
right?
And that's the site of a really good, or the identifier of a really good coach. So
exactly.
Really cool.
And I said since day one, I said, it's not about me. It is totally about you guys. It's about you as individuals. And exactly to what you just said. It's cool. It's fun. It's a different kind of cool and fun, to
it's
see
so
that
true.
happen.
And he's just such a humble person too. Like, if I have a presentation with a client coming up, I always, of course, go to him, show him what I'm presenting. What do I say if they ask me this? I get as much advice from him as I can. And he's always like, say this, blah, blah, blah. And he's so okay with not, I guess, getting that credit in a sense. Like, he's just very humble about it, because all he wants is to see me and the other designers succeed. Yeah. Which is really, really cool. Like, that's a very lucky position to be in for me, like, to have a boss like that. And I'm not just saying that because he's my dad. I would want that kind of boss anywhere, I feel like, Well,
and it's fun to see, like, wow, I never would have thought of that, or, you made me grow just now, or whatever,
Sure.
That's cool. It's exciting.
It's very, very cool. Shifting gears as rapidly as we can, we're going to go from fifth down to second. One of the things that we were discussing before we kind of came on is talking about understanding how to navigate things. And I'm going to put it in my words based off of what you just said, but navigating things through intuition, or through your gut versus other realms. I'm interested in why you brought that up as a topic.
Yeah. Well, I'd say...
How is that? Yeah, I guess, how is that related to the world of creative and design?
Yeah. I mean, especially these days, the point being, or the topic really was about, so much we're surrounded by data, information, and really the overload of that, and which is great. And it's obviously something that has been around for a bit, and certainly not where I started years ago. But I definitely see the value. I think everybody's these days, if you're walking around breathing, the value of it and how you can leverage it, data insights, et cetera, to get a better understanding, obviously, of business, market, your audience, whatever. The slippery slope, at least this is through my filter and, whatever thought process, is the fact that it's one thing to kind of like start from there, but you have to go somewhere with it. You have to listen to your own gut. You have to listen to yourself. I think a lot of times, as I was saying, the slippery slope is that we stop thinking after somebody else or some algorithm has thought for us. And I think that's why too often we see, almost like a regurgitation or the expression of that insight ends up being the expression we want to put out to the world or to the client. And I'm not sure that's really the true objective, especially from a standpoint of differentiation, which ultimately is what you want to do. Otherwise, you're lost in a sea of commodity, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to, go from, data to gut, and, really be unique, very artful and different, and carve your way of thinking, because that is, we're all different.
Yeah.
Data is going to be the same.
Yeah. And are you saying that in terms of like, I'm trying to process it, because I think you could take that a lot of different ways. It is a very applicable statement. Are you talking about in terms of a marketing strategy, of a creative strategy? Like, well, based off of all the data, it says that we need to, use this color and, do this type of thing in this order. Is that what you're? Yeah,
basically, so, at Arthur Elliott, for example, we practice, going from insight to ideate, to create, to relate. So it's our little process here in terms of really going through a discovery phase to uncover the truth, et cetera, et cetera.
Gotcha.
And it's critical, absolutely, with great discussions to be had about it, et cetera. And as much marketing insight as we can get that the client provides or prospect, et cetera, is always something to chew on. The difference is you have to, much like a Michelin chef, it's what you make of it. It's what your personal training, your own instinct, your own gut, whatever tells you to do this with that. Because the thing is, it's too easy for the data to mold and craft the strategy to what you're alluding to. And therefore, then that becomes the creative too often, well, quote unquote creative. And I think it's more interesting if you come sometimes with a certain purity and go with that, because at the end of the day, you do want to stand out. You don't want to blend in.
Yeah.
And that's not going to come from the same thing that the next guy or gal is chewing on and spitting out, so to speak. Boy, that sounded pretty repulsive, but you get me.
Yeah, no, I track with that. And I'm thinking from an operations standpoint in the world of business. I think that there's people that, just kind of flip that conversation around, make all their decisions based off of data alone. Like there's no other thought process other than this is what the numbers say, this is what we're going to do. Yeah. And then you have this whole other skew of people that fly by the seat of their pants, and it's all based off of intuition. Like, kind of feel and see.
Right. What we're missing is drawing from our experience of human life. And, we're kind of going through life sometimes as a bot, depending on algorithms and the data that is served up to everybody equally the same way, et cetera.
Sure.
And I think there's something not revolutionary, but really, optimistic and, unique maybe, or more imaginative if we draw from experiences and maybe flip the script, and that becomes kind of like the data, you know what I mean? And that sort of thing. So I think there's a balance somewhere.
Yeah, we've had this conversation in our organization a lot. Not to drown out this conversation, but it's very intriguing to me. We do a lot of work in our organization around kind of personality assessments to understand how people kind of see things. And one of the things that we've learned is that there's a factor of experiential data. You know, because everybody starts from a different level. Everybody can be educated the same, but your experiences are going to dictate some of that data, and it is a whole different factor. So even what you're saying is it's that gut, but it's actually it could be the experiential data. These are the experiences that I've had, and this is the facts that I've learned from that, and now I can apply it to this situation.
Exactly. Like I love it, for example, like, here are these, business folks getting together, they're talking, they're, whatever, everybody's got their, decks and all this fun stuff that you can pretty much predict and write the script to. But I love it when, in fact, I hear moms, for example, talking, and they come up with the craziest ideas sometimes, but it's so grounded not in these algorithms and data that they're collecting and sharing amongst themselves, but it's grounded in real life, real experiences, and something that is very, very true to life. And if you're out to uncover the truth about a brand or about a strategy or whatever, shoot, there you go.
Yeah. Listen to the experience.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's very, very interesting facts. Well, I appreciate you guys coming in today. This has been a very eye-opening conversation. I think it's applicable across any kind of business realm where if you're working with your kids, you're working with your spouse, or if you're also managing teams with those kind of dynamics on it, because you have to kind of be mindful of that it's not getting out of hand, or that it's not dragging on and interfering with their personal world as well, right? Helping to mitigate that. So those are some things to be mindful of within any business and in any organization. So I appreciate you guys coming in. I think it's kind of really cool to see the dynamic, and I'm sure that there's some down the road you're going to see some really cool creative outbursts come from that dynamic. And congratulations to you for the success and for seeing some really cool stuff coming from your kids.
Thanks, Chad. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much for having us on here. This was really cool.
Hey, guys, thank you very much for joining us. It was a blast chatting with you before and after the recording, and thanks so much for hanging out as well. Man, some great takeaways from a conversation with a father and daughter team, things that you can avoid for nepotism, things that you can identify, and conversations that you can have heading into those working relationships as well. Some really good insights from Lee and Sophia. Thank you so much for joining us today. A reminder to subscribe if you haven't already, and we've got a brand new episode coming out next Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. We look forward to seeing you then.